Anyway, you know the story. He fell asleep under a tree.
Usually it was about a story and a half to Temple from.
Now I want to end with a story to give some perspective.
The stories were unbelievable.
That's my dad and his good friend, Dr. Bob Frick. I'm sure they're not telling you anything you haven't heard already. My dad loves to tell stories. Dad, I'm telling this story, and it's actually about you. Gary McCartney is the second child of Jack and Rosalind McCartney. He was born on November 30th, 1946. He was born and raised with his 4 brothers and 1 sister in the small industrial town of Altoona, Pennsylvania. Rosalind was a firm but loving mother and housewife who taught a young Gary McCartney the importance of self-discipline and the value of education. Gary's father was a hard-working man who provided for his family of 8 by working for the railroad. His sacrifices taught Gary a strong work ethic. High school for Gary McCartney was very similar to high school for many kids of that era. He played high school basketball, went to the prom, fought with his classmates, and formed a gang with his older brother Jeff to avenge any infractions against his younger brothers or himself. This combination of his humble environment created the atmosphere for Gary McCartney to reach beyond Altoona.
And I understand that in Altoona, one of the best pickup lines is nice tooth.
And strive for a profession that would stimulate his active imagination and creative abilities. Upon acceptance at Millersville University, Gary's future as a lifelong learner and educator began. Gary McCartney was accepted as a freshman and moved from Altoona to Lancaster to attend Millersville University, and he graduated in May of 1968 with a Bachelor's of Science in Secondary Education and pursued a teaching career in science and geography. While at Millersville, he distinguished himself as a wrestler, and this is also where he met the love of his life, Cheryl Bortner, my mom. Cheryl and Gary met one another through a mutual friend at school. After graduation, Gary was immediately employed as a science teacher by the Penn Manor School District, which is where he student taught. While teaching at Penn Manor in Lancaster, he commuted to York to court Cheryl, his college sweetheart, who was then teaching in the Central York School District. In 1970, Gary took the plunge and married Cheryl, and she moved back to Lancaster and transferred from York to the Hempfield School District.
When I think of the 34 years we've been married, I tend to categorize the events of our lives according to where you were working at the time. It seemed that about every 6 years there was a change. Who would have thought when you were the head of the teachers union that one day you would be the leader of a school district? Each job opportunity brought new friends, sometimes new homes, and certainly new challenges. You have given each school district you've worked in your total commitment, and I think, biased as I am, each district has benefited from it. Your job certainly didn't end when you came home, and we all knew to leave you alone when you were writing a speech. By the time you gave the speech, we had heard it so many times that we knew what the next line was going to be. We still banter many of these phrases around the house. Do your best and then some. Expect the best and get it. What you believe is what you achieve, and Brett's favorite. Dreams may be the fanciful guidepost, but work, real work, is the earthen road to achievement. While it will be an adjustment to not having you come home each day, or should I say each night by the time you got home, there will be some benefits. The kitchen table will not be cluttered with your papers. Our neighbors will not be your boss. The dog can sleep on your side of the bed. No more 5 a.m. snow calls, and the people at Whitehall will no longer be asking me what Parkland is going to do. As you begin this new adventure, I I know that you will take your energy and vision to South Brunswick as you have done in all your other jobs. We love you and know that the best is yet to come.
Gary's next job was to prove much more challenging as assistant high school principal at Lampeter Strasburg.
The man is legend. He was at Lampeter Strasburg as an administrator only. I didn't know him as a teacher, but being an assistant high school principal, he handled all the discipline. And the high school principal didn't do discipline. The assistant did the discipline. He was the only assistant, so he had it all to do. And I can remember one issue, he got into a discussion on the telephone with a parent of a particularly unruly student who had been in problem after problem, and the man threatened to come and beat him up. And yeah, your dad had enough of it at that point that he said to him, I'll meet you in 20 minutes out back.
Who would have thought that his experiences beating up kids in the neighborhood and his college wrestling career would have come in handy as an assistant principal?
But the man never showed up. I guess he realized that your dad being from Altoona probably wouldn't fight fairly and stuff, I'm guessing.
During his time there, he not only gained more experience as an educator, but he also developed a lifelong friendship.
He used to call me on the telephone and have me come down when he'd find certain graffitis written on the walls. You got to read this one before they erase it, those types of things.
Soon Gary and Cheryl were to expect their first child, Brett. Brett was born in April of '78.
I just, congratulations, Dad, on being the success that you've proven to be at yet another school. I think that it's a tribute to your perseverance and hard work and dedication that Parkland's turned out the way it has, just like Fleetwood did. And I can remember starting at Fleetwood in 4th grade and remembering what kind of backwards area it was, and then when you leave and you had a brand new middle school and additions to elementary schools, and now what Fleetwood is now is probably a lot of credit should go to you. Whether that's good or bad at this point, I don't know, but when you left it was much better than when you started. And I think the same can be said for Parkland. And I think when you came here that there was a lot of issues and a lot of problems that have been sorted out that I think that a lot of other people wouldn't have been able to do. And you can look around at a lot of school districts and they'd have been lucky to have you. And Parkland, I think, is grateful, and I think that it's been well received, that your hard work here. So I'm proud of you. I think everybody else is. I don't think there's much else to say. Looking back, that you've done an outstanding job of being in this school, which I never went to because you couldn't get this squared away from 1994 through 1996. But this is a great accomplishment, and as are all the other schools, and I'm sure every kid who's gone through here appreciates everything that you've done, and I know I have. And while I'm saying, congratulations on closing this chapter, I'm sure, knowing you, that the next chapter you'll work just as hard and you'll strive to accomplish just as much. So congratulations, and thank you for everything you've done for me during my 3 years at Parkland and after that. And thanks a lot.
But that did not keep Gary from continuing to strive to obtain higher positions in the field of education. Making the jump from assistant principal to assistant superintendent for the Warwick School District in 1981 was easy for Gary. During the next 4 years, Gary and Cheryl had their second son, Nathan.
Dad, I just wanted to say good luck. I'm sure you won't need it at South Brunswick, but I wish you good luck just the same. For as long as I can remember, my dad's played a valuable part of my education, not only as a parent, but as an educator and an administrator everywhere. Actually been the superintendent, so it's been interesting. He's tried to keep me on a good track, and I'd like to think he's done a pretty good job. Thanks a lot, Dad. I wish you the best of luck. I really appreciate everything you've done for me as a as a parent and as an administrator and just someone who's been looking after me. Thanks a lot and good luck.
He finished his doctorate of education from Temple and had his only daughter, me, his pride and joy. Sorry, Brett and Nathan, but I'm telling this story my way.
It's hard to believe that the interval of time between diapers and diplomas could be so short. And there's so much for us to remember. It seems like only yesterday that she would climb up on my lap with her favorite book, and in that toddler talk say, read. How about birthdays, high chairs, and cakes? Didn't they make for some great videos? Remember that nervous feeling that we all had when we sent them off to school for the very first time? Remember the first bike ride without the training wheels? Ouch, that one hurt. Remember the joy of the first romance and the tears of the first heartbreak? And how about prom day and how grown up they looked?
Fleetwood Area School District hired Gary in 1986 as the superintendent of schools. Moving the family to Fleetwood was an adventure. This was the McCartney's first experience of home building. Choosing to build is always an adventure. Since the house wasn't finished when we first arrived, we managed to obtain luxury accommodations in the apartment above Gill's restaurant. The house at 504 West Greenway Street was within walking distance to the school. Brett, Nathan, and I all walked to school from home. Of course, my dad would tell us that when he went to school, he had to walk 17.5 miles to school with snow up to his knees. But we all knew that Altoona wasn't even 5 miles long or wide. Once again, another story told with his well-honed skills of exaggeration. In 1992, Gary McCartney arrived at the Parkland School District, and this is where he had his most memorable impact. This is where most of you met Gary McCartney and have known him to be a one-of-a-kind superintendent. All jokes aside, Gary brought a vision to the Parkland School District that is second to none. I know I'm biased. With 7 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and now a state-of-the-art high school, Gary has transformed a rural Pennsylvania school district into one of the top districts in the country, not only in academics, but also in the arts and athletics. Gary McCartney recognizes the need for change. Much of Gary McCartney's success is in his willingness to allow his staff to take those risks that end up being instrumental in developing new and innovative ways of teaching children. And of course, the building of the state-of-the-art high school. This took years of planning, designing, and implementing. And of course, Gary McCartney was also instrumental in selling the concept to the public. No small feat in the Parkland School District. With so much on his plate, Gary McCartney still finds time to have some fun. Whether visiting Hershey Park, Williamsburg, block parties, Disney World, and Universal Studios, San Francisco, or just picnicking in the backyard with family and friends. Of course, we all know his favorite places to visit are Smuggler's Notch in Vermont and Boston to see the Celtics, who usually lose. Few people are able to see or experience the personal side of Gary McCartney other than the get-together during the holidays. But even though Gary McCartney may not have a lot of personal time, he makes every minute a quality minute. Gary McCartney is full of passion. Passion for work, passion for family, passion for friends, passion for life, passion for the Celtics, passion for Zoe, and when he can, he combines them.
The past is yours. Learn from it. The present is yours. Fulfill it.
The future is yours. Enjoy it. My entire education has been spent at schools where you've been the superintendent. This may sound biased, but I feel that every school that you've touched has exceeded each community's expectations. I just want to thank you, and not just for myself, but for the students and staff who you've guided throughout your career. Now, because of you, we all have stories to tell. Thanks, Dad.